Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. My name is Michael Greeno. I am the owner of Barpath. Uh, I want to bring you the next feature, and I'll be straight with you. I really don't know how this is going to be received. Uh, this one's near and dear to my heart. Of course, they're all near and dear to my heart, but this one has come in the making of a lot of people. Um, and I think, there are a lot of people who are going to be excited for this one because they see the vision that I see. What people don't understand is that all-time world records are the barometer of what this sport is. And whenever these things increase, the culture and the things change. People elevate, the evolution of the sport changes. What people consider normal now changes, right? And the reality of it is that the credibility of the sport, anytime there's a credibility issue in the sport, typically at the center of the sport is some sort of all-time world record. Some sort of things. The all-time world records are the proverbial ceiling or the tide in which the sport elevates and sinks. When a record is set incredibly well, it's elevated. But when it is kind of taken in bad terms, it is it regresses and the sport kind of contracts a little bit. It tears people down, it ruins people's dreams because it feels like some things are kind of stolen. But at the same time, we forget the people who came before us. We forget as soon as that person becomes number one, everyone behind them becomes secondary. So I sought to solve this with Barpath to essentially capture the history of the sport and capture the spirit and the credibility and to certify these records, not as mere statistics anymore, but certified powerlifting records curated by people from all parts of the sport, people who have held all-time world records in any division, international judges, national judges, people who have been in the sport for decades, curators who have such an immense amount of passion for this sport and objectivity of this sport who wants to leave the sport better than where they found it. Contributors of the sport, not consumers. So without further ado, I bring you the all-time world record curation system. We will dive into it. Let's go to 140 kilo plus. This is all data driven from an old database, but you get the point. As you can see, we're in the 140 kilo men total board, right? Men untested raw. When it comes to the paradigms of tested versus untested and the filters, untested represents the collective whole of powerlifting. That's how untested is and how untested will always be. We do not limit ourselves to just, oh, we're untested, so the tested people can't join. Now, that door does not swing the other way. If you are tested, you have your own space. But if you are untested, you are part of the entire sport of powerlifting. Everybody. To be an untested all-time world record holder means you are literally the greatest in the sport at that particular thing. That is why untested is so important, because you are the best without constraints. To be the tested is to be done with constraints, which is incredibly prestigious as well. But those deserve their own space. So when you sit here and you think about that, and you look at, Austin Perkins, and you look at Sunita, and you look at some of these people who are tested, Agata, they are literally the best in the world in the traditional weight classes out of all of powerlifting. That is incredible. And they deserve that. They deserve that shine and they deserve that space. Jesus Oliveira is the same thing. When you are literally the best in the world, regardless of testing and untesting, you deserve to be recognized in that respect. So we go into this. You see Jesus is number one. He's got 2 records. Dan Bell, Ray Williams. What I want you guys to see this. I want you to look at this, and I want you to see the lineal history of this, and understand that this is about the overall state of the sport. This is, when you look at some of these records and stuff and how they, except like, for instance, Precious McKenzie has held this record since 1966. There's no other person who's held this record ever in the 44, in the 56 kilo men's class. No one has broken that record ever. So it's incredibly important to kind of call that out, because it shows the lineal history of things. You look at these people and who's come and gone, John Hack, Jesse Norris, I've worked really hard to kind of get the lineal history as far as this would trace back. The fact of the matter is the data starts to get a little bit blurry in some cases. So not all of them I can trace back incredibly far, but some I can trace back incredibly far. And I worked really, really hard to get those records and get things back to 2006, some of them back to the 70s, et cetera. If I look in some of the, single ply days, et cetera, and I can look at, different numbers and stuff like that, like Alexander Kutcher or something to that effect. If I look at the 100 kilo class, Ed Cohn, in 1985, he was just how dominant he was, et cetera. Like, I can go back to these things, right? But when you look at these and we go back into them and we look at this particular record, what we see is a story. We see a validation of it. The people I'll talk about here soon. We'll talk about the timeline. We'll talk about the review material. We'll talk about how this comes to be and how this record is validated. Here's a little bit of some test data. I put Christoph as number one, and with him like actually re-breaking his record, etc. When I look at this, you see that it got a very negative panel assessment for this particular one, and the curators, again, the curator is completely anonymous. As a quick down command, knees felt soft, bit misleading. So there was definitely a lot of doubt, but then it was also like reflected in that person's score. Now, how does this work? Anytime a person assumes the number one spot on in the powerlifting database, in open powerlifting, because this is where all this data is sourced, it comes into Barpath. When that number one spot is taken, a new claim is brought into the system. And when that claim is brought into the system, a list of curators that I'll talk about here shortly will get notified. They will come into Barpath and they will look at this. They will provide video evidence. We'll look at video evidence. We'll look at the different things in that respect. And what we'll do is we will provide a score. And that score will be from a 1 to 5. And it'll be corroborated data. In other words, it's just like it's provided. The evidence is provided, whether it be video, social media. You score 1 to 5 based upon video, social media. You were maybe in person. Maybe you were the judge in the chair. Maybe the official results in that respect, and that's all you saw. So like you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm split because all I saw was the official results. I didn't see anything else. Maybe they just literally hit it, right? So you literally just have, you base that based on that. The review is as such. Number one means under no circumstances, and you will place your personal reputation on it, that there is no way that lift was ever a legal certified lift. It just wasn't. There's no, and no way without 100% certainty you would be willing to walk away from powerlifting tomorrow if that lift was deemed good. 2 is a weak case. In other words, basically saying it's like, you know what? There's a possibility, a slight possibility, but there's just too much evidence to provide that it was not a good lift. The circumstances, the credibility of things, the encompassing things. Maybe you saw it on video. Maybe you were in the crowd, you were in person, and you're like, yeah, just no. It was just like it got three white lights, and you're just like, yeah, no. Like, there's no way that person made weight or whatever. There's this extenuating circumstances, right? Three and four is where a lot of things are going to live. You're just not sure. Based upon the rules, which we'll talk about the curator rules here in a little bit and how to become a curator. But essentially, the long and the short of it is a lot of things are going to live in this split decision and sound area. A lot of times, what's going to happen is you're going to look at this and you're going to be like, you know what? I saw it on social media, saw the video. I really don't, I don't know. I really don't know. It got 2-1. So something tells me there was something up with it and maybe just a bad call. So I'm really, really torn on it. But I can't really speak negatively, but I definitely can't speak positively about it. Right. So it just kind of sits in the middle. Right. So it's just kind of just like, yep, not the best, but it's also not the worst. 4 is when it starts getting a little bit better. You're like, yep, I can see that. Could be, bad call, whether like that, hey, that was, I can't really, I can see it. It looks pretty good, but it was done at a local meet. The judging and stuff. Like I see some downward motion on the bar. The knees don't look locked out to me, but it's kind of a weird angle. There's a little bit of doubt, right? There's a little bit of doubt, but benefit of the doubt always goes to the lifter. So you're just like, it's pretty sound. Like it's for the most part, it's good. But we can nitpick it to oblivion if we need it to be, right? 5 is the inverse of 1. In other words, you are willing to stake your absolute credibility and your own personal reputation that was a good lift. Simple as that. You state your claim, you talk about it as in a professional manner that conforms to the rules of being a curator. You set the reasons what you saw, and you submit your review. It's very simple, right? That is the job of a curator. My job is the admin. I am a facilitator. I will not inject my presence into anything. However, this admin override is a nuclear bomb. Should something ever happen in this space, Barpath is taking a stance on all-time world records. Simply put, we are. This is a confidence score, validation reason, video evidence, etc. Say someone falsifies their weight, they get an all-time world record and they falsify their weight, and come to find out there was a video that surfaced that basically says, hey, I was never at weight, I was 5 pounds over, and they let me do it anyway. I will come into this panel and I will put the confidence score at 0. I will link that validation, and I will link that video. I will save that video and I will put it out there, and I will contact the federation. And if they do nothing about it, I will strike that world record from Barpath. I will make it known, and I will tar and feather that person and their integrity entirely. And it will always be known. And people can go back and they can look at the records and they can see that a person did that. And it's not defamatory, it's truth at that point. And it'll get stricken because this is my platform, my curation system, and I will decertify that platform. Because at the end of the day, this is a certification platform, ladies and gentlemen. I want to certify these records. I want to look at these. If someone comes along and they break these records, I want them to understand that it's important. Eventually, at this point, I want to do the reward system for it. Like, if Andrew House breaks this again, or Kyle Curvey breaks this, I provide them with like a plaque, not a plaque, but like a certification paper, just like Guinness Book of World Records. They certify it and they send you a stamped, gold leaf stamped saying, hey, I did this. I ate, whatever the crazy Guinness Book World is. I ate, 955 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in 24 hours. Whatever. Same thing. I squat have the squat all time world record or something to that effect, right? I want it to mean something. And I want these people who have come before them, Andrew House, Kyle Curvey, Zach Myers, Larry Wheels, Eric Lillybridge, Konstantin Konstantinovs. Like, these are legends. These are legends. And this is a pantheon of this particular group of people. And it's incredibly important that we recognize and we respect these people. But at the same time, we hold these records accountable so that we have a running list of the overall credibility so that we can get better, right? And we can certify those and we can take a stance on them. The review queue, pretty simple. You just have all the active and reviewed ones. The default is 75%. So if something sits at 75%, you can know that it's by default. I have no proof. Otherwise, it's going to be set at 75%. Curator rules. And we'll talk about being a curator here in a second. To be a curator, you have to apply. There will be an application system. It'll ask you a few questions, very simple, and at which point you will be accepted or you will be rejected. I do not want you to feel bad about the rejection. I am going to have a set list of curators at start, and then I will expand it over time. If I have 100 curators, okay. But understand, I want the most qualified people on the planet to be curators. I don't want just everybody to be a curator. I don't want a person who's only done one meet to be a curator. I don't want a person who has never even seen an all-time world record in person be a curator. Like, I want all-time world record holders, multiply, single ply, legends of the sport. I want judges. I want people who have legitimate skin in the game. I want contributors to the sport, not consumers. So if you find yourself being more of a consumer of the sport, chances are I won't select you to be a curator, right? Because I am going to demand a lot from you in a voluntary role. Now, there may be incentive in the future as a curator, but not right now. This is a service that I want to be able to provide people, and there'll be the popular vote as well, and we'll talk about that. To be a curator, you is to follow these rules, and I'll go over a couple of them. I'm not going to go over all of them. Under no circumstances are you to divulge that you are a Barpath curator to anyone at any time. Seeking out the identities of other Barpath curators, colluding with them, and speaking about scores and lifts is expressly forbidden. Should it become legitimately known that you are a Barpath curator, your status will be revoked immediately. Curators are the invisible hand of the process. We are the authority and we speak for the community. I want you guys to think of that as like the Electoral College. The people that I select to be a curator, if I accept you, if you're accepted as a curator, you are the invisible hand of the integrity of the sport. So when an all-time world record is set, you are to follow these rules as closely as you can and to understand that the rules apply and that's be done in a professional manner with a high degree of integrity. It's a voluntary role and a binding one. As a curator, you act as a direct representative of the sport of powerlifting and Barpath. Every score you cast attaches to the record permanently and publicly. Treat each claim as if the sport's credibility depends on your reasoning, because in aggregate it does. Evidence can be blurry, angles can mislead, paperwork can lag. When the evidence leaves genuine room for interpretation, you do not guess against the athlete. However clear a doubt may feel, the benefit always goes to the lifter. In other words, benefit of the doubt. Don't sit there and like tear someone apart because when in reality you're not entirely sure. Federation rules govern the lift. If they compete in the USAPL, they abide by the USAPL rules. Do not try to paint USPA rules or another federation rules to an all-time world record. Understand that if someone's head comes up on an all-time world record bench in the USAPL, It's not an all-time world record. It should affect your score. Like, yeah, their head came up. That's not allowed in that Fed. Scoring honestly, making sure that you have the understanding of what that means, declaring your evidence. If you're going to substantiate your claim, I need you to, if you're going to make your claim, I need you to substantiate it. And I need you to be professional. The scores need to be independent without collusion. Again, it goes back to number one. My curators are not meant to be known. They are going to be very silent. I will know my curators, but I will be the only person who knows my curators, right? You write your cases. These are not, the score is a meter, not a gate. It's a ratified thing. It's a certification process, guys. It doesn't stop you from being an all-time world record holder. It doesn't tell you that you're not an all-time world record holder. It just means your record may not be as acceptable as others. And it's just like any other thing. It's when you get 2-1 on a lift, right? You set the record. I got 2-1. Well, I got a good lift. Well, let's look at it. If it's going to be a record, it's going to be in the record books. Is it really going to be in the record books? Is it really? It's going to be, yeah, successful. But is it? What level of credibility is it at? Professional conduct, conflicts of interest, etc. Right? You want to join the curator panel? You essentially hear, and I can, we can look at it. But essentially, is that you have an application process, but essentially, being a curator, it tells you exactly how to apply, and you apply. And I validate it. I may interview you. Depending on your credentials and who you might be, I might approve you immediately and just say, hey, you're approved. Communication will be handled in ways that are meant to keep you guys anonymous, etc. Records desk, etc. Again, one last thing. The public, you guys are not on your own. I want you guys to know that it's incredibly important to have a say in everything you do. And when we look at these particular records and we look at these areas, you'll notice that it says the people, right? So Barpath Pro members, and I say that because I'm not allowing everybody. If you're a Barpath Pro member and you feel passionately about this space, you have a say too. If you're a member of Barpath Pro and an all-time world record is done, you can come in and you can cast your vote. You can see the review material just as you can as the curators can, but yours is going to be a little bit less true, less in depth. It's going to be it stands or you're not sold. I want a binary result from you guys, and I want to see how this trends versus my curators. This is my litmus test. I was like, hey, how close are my curators to the popular vote, right? So think of the electoral college versus the people, like the actual pure count of that. So if I have 200 people vote that they're not sold, but my curators say, hey, it's like 75, 80%, we have a problem. We have a huge problem, right? There might be some disconnect there, and that I need to have a conversation, with my curators or something to that effect, right? Or there's just a disconnect somewhere, or it's very polarizing. Chances are these are going to align fairly closely, in my opinion. For example, the 220 squat record, it's got, for instance, I seeded with some basic data or something to that effect, some basic data on this. This is what a fully curated all-time world record will look at. Joe Sullivan, he set it in 2023, 100 kilo class, 851 pounds, 91% panel approval. The people said 87%. This is the community's verdict. Said 556 said that wasn't sold. 1,200 said they were sold. This is the day that it was done. This was claim file is ratified at 95% or 91%. And this is what the panel said. 3 white lights, three whites, calibrated discs on the platform, death beyond question, certify. Someone's like, yeah, sound, fed results, posted, consistent, loading with loading chart, sound, right? Secondary angle in the crowd for confirms lockout, whatever, for the most part, place everybody 3 judging 3-0. Those things matter. It's like, hey, it got 3 white lights. Okay, cool. It wasn't 2-1 or something to that effect. So when you look at this particular information, you have a really big certifiable set of information here. In addition, when you log in, if you are a curator, you'll see in your notification system that a record claim is now ready for you to vote. So in other words, you can go in here and you say, okay, cool. It'll take me here as stands. And if you're a pro member, same thing. It's like, hey, cool. A new world record, a new all-time world record just got done. Do you want to go vote on it? It stands, not sold, right? Whatever. And then once you kind of do on it, it kind of goes from there. And you just kind of set it and you're done. And away you go, right? So in closing in all of this, right? This is, again, I can't begin to sit here and tell you how excited I am for this. But at the same time, I want you guys to know that this isn't meant to disparage bad records. It's meant to simply just capture the lineal history and the story of these records. Good, bad, or indifferent. It's impartial. It's not biased. The curators I will seek to be on these panels will be unbiased. It may be their record. You may come along and break a curator's record if they happen to be on the panel. That might hurt. But understand that person, if they certify you, imagine, you may not ever know it. That's a conversation within that curator self. That curator says, hey, they just broke my record. And they have to sit here and they have to jump on and certify the record that you broke. You gotta think about that, right? And there might be a time where there might be the occasional slip up or something like that, where a person's like, yeah, you broke, they write in the comment, congratulations, you broke my record. I certify this lift. We're like, oh, well, hopefully I'll slap you on the hand, but I won't. You just let everybody know that you're a curator. But no, I want to keep this pure. I want to take a stance. We deserve these people, these legends deserve this. So this is going to be released in the coming days. I'm excited for it. Hope you are too. If you want to become a curator, once this is released, applications will start coming out. I have started reaching out to individuals one-on-one who I think would be a good candidate for curation, so I can have a skeleton crew should a new record come through, because we are getting close to some bigger meets. But until then, I would like to fill this out. My first initial run is I'm going to get about probably 10 to 20 initial curators, and then I will block it off at that. I will not allow people. I will allow people to apply to be curated, but I'll let them know that the current curator group is blocked off for now. I don't want a whole bunch of people and then people just kind of coming in droves and excuse the numbers. I want to be able to get a good baseline of how these are going to be scored, and I want to get a good handle on the system. So yeah, here it is, guys. I hope you like it. More to come.